Welcome, everybody, to Warfighters United, a podcast where we hear from veteran resources, veteran transitional programs, and veterans' voices from our lips to your ears. My name is Eric Calley, a former U.S. Marine, and I'll be your host for today. And over the next month, we'll be talking about a lot of different things. We're going to be talking about the hyperbaric oxygen chamber treatment. We're going to be talking to Major Christopher Buck from Thrivent. We're going to be talking to James Sperry, who I have on the line. Hey, how you doing, James?
Yeah, doing well. How about yourself, Eric?
Yeah, not too bad. So, you're a Marine, you're a great friend of mine, and we've known each other for years, and we've got to help a lot of veterans over the years. And so today, we're going to be able to highlight some of those things, but before we do that, I kind of want to hear about your story. What made you enlist into the Marine Corps?
Well, I think with a lot of Marines that are about my age, I think 9/11 was a pretty pivotal point for all of us. I think after, watching the towers fall when you're in high school and having that sense of duty or that sense of call come to you, like most Marines did at that time, it was just kind of like, hey, like I said, there's a call to your soul that you had to do something to try to make it right. So that was the biggest thing that made me join the Marine Corps, give up a lot for it, college and a bunch of other things, but chose to be a grunt and go into the fight.
Oh, yeah. So when did you join the Marine Corps? Was it 2003?
Yeah, it was 2003. I was one of those most gung-ho Marines ever. I went right to the recruiting station and basically recruited myself. They didn't have to do any recruiting for me. I did my research and figured out the Marines was if I was going to go in, I might as well go in what I saw at the top of the barrel at that time, the Marine Corps, and that's what I did. So I spent 6 to 7 months training prior to going into the military. Was lucky enough to be sworn into the Marine Corps by President George W. Bush, just because I was so dang gung-ho, when I was 18 years old, Yeah.
Well, not everybody gets to be sworn in by a president. So
yeah, it was just one of those happenstances, just with the time, and he was there, especially in town in St. Louis for a national convention, and I was just happened to be the one there at the correct time that was gung-ho enough to get sworn in by him. So.
So, fast forward, you go to School of Infantry, and, I don't know how long you were in the Marine Corps for before you got sent over to Iraq. But tell me about, you were with 3-1, tell me about 3-1.
Yeah, so I got basically assigned to 3rd Battalion 1st Marines, and I was the absolute last wave of what we call boot Marines, or Marines that are brand new to a battalion in the Marine Corps. And so I only had about 3, maybe 3.5 months to train up with them before I left for Iraq. And basically just went into 3.5 months of training, got everything prepped as well as I could, and we took off to Al-Anbar province back in, I guess, 2004.
Yeah, and you were part of Phantom Fury, one of the bloodiest battles of Iraq. I know that you got kind of catastrophically injured there. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah. So basically, we got there. We were the OF Operation Iraqi Freedom 2, Wave 2, and we got assigned to basically be on the outskirts of Fallujah our entire trip there, and so basically while we were there, we were basically tuning up for the taking over the city, because right before we showed up in country in Iraq, a previous Marine Corps battalion, I believe a few Army battalions, tried to take over Fallujah because it was not under U.S. control at that time, and they ended up having to pull out due to multiple reasons, and the city was still not in U.S. control. So we knew during our deployment that we would have to basically take over the city. So our entire deployment was basically just the outskirts of Fallujah, getting pop-shotted, IED'd, what we called Mortar 30. Every evening you get mortared right when the dust would go down, and right when the sun was going down, we would cool off. And it was basically a never-ending, relentless turn of unbelievable heat and trying not to get shot or blown up every day.
Yeah, no, that was where General Mattis made his famous speech, was right before the invasion of Phantom Fury and into Fallujah. Were you there for that?
Yeah, I got to. I was was lucky enough to go in on that. I believe we went on the night of November 8th, 2004, into Fallujah. And 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, India Company, we had basically control. If you look at Fallujah from like a satellite map looking down, and if you coordinate it off, they would show you like every battalion that went into Fallujah. There's a whole like Google Maps thing where you can look at the battalions of where they were actually assigned to Fallujah. And my company and my battalion was assigned basically the far western part of Fallujah, right against the Euphrates River. And it was basically the job of the rest of the Marine Corps and the Army to push them towards the river, and then our job was to come through and clear them out.
Yeah, and while you were clearing them out, I know they used the Fallujah train station as a medevac point, and you guys were clearing houses, and, tell me about that. What happened when you got medevaced out?
Well, I got basically halfway through I think the November 9th day of the battle. I think we got just north of what they call Jolan Park. It was basically just a spot on the map that had a giant water tower, and it was I think the actual locals called it Jolan Park. But we were approaching that area, and as we approached it, we got mortared pretty well because they had a lot of time to kind of prep the city, and they prepped all their mortar tubes very well. And so when we got to this area, we immediately got mortared and basically had to do what we call a tactical retreat to go back. And then we pushed a second time to get up to this tank because the RPGs that were coming down the alleys and stuff like that were basically would hit the side of a tank, and then the whole entire street would be stopped because we have to repair a tank to get the rest of the company, the armored battalion, through. So I got assigned to basically make sure that didn't happen. And when I got up to that position finally, we were having to go across a 4-lane road, and when we went across this 4-lane road, they basically opened fire up on me, and I had to run across the road by myself, got to the other side. I ended up getting hit by an RPG and putting a piece of shrapnel in my head and some broken bones here and there. But yeah, it was a pretty crazy day.
Yeah. So tell me, you get medevaced out, and you're in a coma for a while. What was it like to wake up and realize you were still alive?
Yeah, well, I had kind of an interesting event happen when it came to that. So on my medevac point, you can actually, your listeners or whoever can go on YouTube and just type in my name into YouTube. You can actually watch the wound that I received. We had a video camera people attached to us. But in the interluding, when I got back from basically being hit to the time I got back to the train station, which was the medevac point, somehow, I had no recollection of it, obviously. I'm completely out of it. But somehow I get put into an area where there's the deceased Marines and deceased Iraqis. And there's a surgeon going around doing a medical check of all of us, and he ends up flicking me in the eye because they go around and flick everybody that they think is deceased or dead. They flick him in the eye to see if there's an auto response. And sure enough, when that doctor got to me, he flicked my eye and I responded. And I ended up being medevaced basically immediately out and went to Iraq for a little while to like Balad for a few days, and then I ended up in Germany. And I don't really remember any of the Balad stuff, but when I woke up in Germany, I woke up as a captain, and I was only a private. I think I was even I don't think I was a private first class. I think I was a private. I think I was like an E1 at that time. But I woke up in a German hospital as a captain, and they were calling me Captain Sperry, and it took me a few days for me to realize what the heck they were saying to me, and sure enough, when I said something to them like, "Hey, I'm not a captain. I'm a private," they immediately took me out of the hospital and out of the officers' hospital and put me into the enlisted hospital like immediately. But,
man, I wouldn't have said anything. I would have stayed right there and said I was a captain.
I always wonder, dude. I always wonder if like if the guy got like that Captain Sperry's family got notified or something that he was in the hospital and he wasn't,
Well, I tell you, I remember it was probably 2010, 2011. We were, in St. Louis at a Focus Marines Foundation, and you got an email from this sergeant, and from the time you were injured in 2004 to 2010, you had no recollection that this happened to you, that you were you were pronounced KIA. And then they came over and I think he sent you a picture, and it was everybody standing around you because they couldn't believe that you were still alive.
Yeah, that was, I still have no recollection. I still don't remember it at all, but yeah, I got that email from a sergeant, I think in H&S company for 3-1. I can't remember his name, but yeah, she told me the story. And I didn't even find out exactly what happened to me, period. Like even going across the road and me getting shot multiple times in the RPG until like 2020. So I knew I got like hurt, but I didn't like hear the exact story from the Marines there until like 2020. But yeah, I didn't know that other part until that H&S sergeant called me.
Wow. Now that's just amazing. Now, I know after you got back to the States, you spent years recovering. You went to, I believe, the Shepherd Center.
Yeah. So I struggled when I got back. We lost a lot of guys, and I was one of those Marines that didn't have the best of childhoods. And the first time I ever felt like I had a family, like ever in my entire life, like an actual cohesive family, was in the Marine Corps. And you guys we all get so close together, and then you're ripped apart again. It kind of felt like my childhood. So like I was going through like double trauma, like childhood trauma, on top of all the other trauma just from Iraq and losing my best buddy, and I think we lost in total, over 40 guys, maybe even 50 guys. Can't remember with our attachments to us, but yeah, I spent a lot of years. It took me a lot of years to get back on my feet, and I was lucky enough to have the Wounded Warrior Regiment come to my door probably 8 years after me struggling, and taught me and basically said, "Hey, we have a program that we want to send you to," and it was a Focus Marines program, and I think it was in Augusta, Missouri, and they sent me there, and it's a bunch of Marines that are basically got together. They were successful in their life and want to give back, and they created this program that's been going on now for probably a decade. But yeah, I got hooked up with them for a number of years, did talks after I went through the program, helped with a bunch of different Marines. I think that's how I met you, and ended up doing a bunch of speeches for them. And then we started our organization and did what we did. But yeah, they are a program for any Marine struggling, period, even today, currently at this time.
Actually, now they are open to any person in the service, whether you're a soldier, Navy, It doesn't matter. Focus.org is that. And if you go to VFW4646.com, that will be up there. There's going to be quick links. So as we're talking about these 7-day transitional programs, we're going to put them up on VFW4646.com. So anybody who wants to go to those and see what they're about, you can click on that hyperlink and it will take you right there. But let me pause for a second for our quick, let me pause for our quick sponsorship, and we'll be right back.
Running a small business is tough, but you don't have to do it alone. The Small Business Association of Michigan provides tools, connections, and advocacy to help you succeed. Join thousands of fellow entrepreneurs at SBAM.org.
Welcome back. So, James, now we were talking about Focus Marines Foundation, Focus, that's where I met you at. And, I was going down there to get transitional help too. And, through that program, we, started, coming together as a team and, we came up with, I believe it was the Reading of the Fallen, that we did across the United States. I can't remember how many names that we read, but it was from the Revolutionary War to present. And I can't remember how many, places read them, but do you remember that?
Yeah, I definitely remember it. There was a lot of monster drinks, and I would basically wake up then when we made that decision with the Focus program and some of the guys there to do that to help our organization. Yeah, it was like basically all hands on deck. I would start in the morning at Hawaii at their time frame, whenever it was 8 a.m. there, and then I call them, talk to all the people, and I just moved like from time frame to time frame. And I wish I would remember exactly how many, but it was. I think we read just about every veteran's name that we received, and it was through. It was in Afghanistan. There was a bunch of different countries other than the United States, plus the United States. But I think it was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, reading of the Fallen on a Veterans Day.
Well, we just wanted to make sure that all those who've fallen for our freedom got the respect they deserve. And it was in every state across the nation. We probably read over 2.5 million names that day at noon.
Like that. It was a lot. It was every name we ever got access on, we got out. So
yeah, and if it wasn't for your sister helping us with that, with the computer skills, I don't know if we'd been able to accomplish it. Fast forward to 2012, I went out to the Wounded Warrior trials out in Camp Pendleton, and I met General Jones, and I was telling him about what you and I were doing, and And, and then it, kind of transversed from Focus, and we went over to Semper Fi Odyssey, which is was new to us back then, but it was another 7-day transitional program. And so we started going out there and, volunteering to help out Marines that were either in the Wounded Warrior Regiment or, waiting to get out, and they needed something to do. And so they would send them over to this program. And we started taking veterans from St. Louis to Michigan to Texas. I mean, you name it, anywhere that we had a veteran that was in need, we would go to Semper Fi Odyssey. And that's, both of these programs are 7 days at no cost to you. They'll fly you out there. You'll spend 7 days on a mountainside, and, if it's Focus, you'll be in a lodge over a lake with an air gas operated potato gun. I mean, how cool is that? But yeah, you and I probably volunteered at Semper Fi Odyssey 15, 20 times at least.
Yeah, it's a great place. It's a great place to connect with nature. I mean, they both are, but Semper Fi Odyssey gives you a little more of the physical with the mental. They have a lot of those cool little recreational courses you can go through that's on their property, like zip lining and rock climbing and a bunch of team building exercises and jumping out to basically it's a push-up bar, but it's hanging out there. You're going to run out and jump to it, but they're very good at combining the physical with the mental. Both programs are great, but it's definitely a program that if you're struggling, if you need breaks from the family, if you need breaks just from your own bad thoughts and memories and nightmares and want to try to reconnect, both of those organizations are great for it. They both step up and do everything they can to get you back on your feet. They won't baby you. I mean, but they'll tell you the hard truth, and it's kind of your job to sit there and take it and educate yourself and learn from it and move forward. I
tell you what, being out at Odyssey, up on that mountainside, we had the, opportunity to meet so many great veterans, so many great warfighters that served our country. And, speaking of that, the treehouse master, he came out and he built a treehouse. And so now they're doing yoga, they're doing Tai Chi, they're doing all these kind of holistical treatments that, Marines before then were like, yeah, we ain't doing that stuff. But now, that kind of, getting your breathing under control, downward dogs, all that kind of good stuff, they're kind of implementing that into their program.
Yeah, and that's a great thing because, like, it's one of those things that when you're in the military or you're combat veteran or whatever you want to call it, you kind of look down on that stuff. But that's a part of our life that has to be there because it does connect you with what you want to call God or spiritual or just a connection with your fellow man. It teaches you the breathing and how to really open up your mind and your soul to heal yourself. And all those programs, Tai Chi, yoga, all that stuff is really great for guys. I got into Tai Chi, and I was, I was a hardcore Marine there, and getting into Tai Chi, and it was mostly when I did it on myself privately. It was a bunch of older people because only older people really do it. But that was one thing that you look silly doing it, but it just helps your mind, it helps your soul, and helps guys to heal.
Yeah, and they also use SMEAC, situation, mission, execution, admin, logistics, and communication to start building yourself a plan for life, Take what you love, your hobbies, your work, and, put it into a business plan almost, and start putting that to work, because once you start, contemplating what you want to do afterwards and you start putting it in a plan and you start making that stuff happen, things just kind of fall into place sometimes. But then again, you and I both, we've helped a lot of veterans. We've been there for veterans and, me with the Ionia County Veterans Court, pioneering the first veterans court in the state of Michigan. And now we have over 50. We would bring guys down and, we kind of want to hit on some of those guys. We tried to help them so much and it just wasn't enough, unfortunately, they decided to take the easy way out. And, you and I have had to go to funerals from guys that, ended up committing suicide. If you're a veteran out there and you're having struggles and you're having issues, the nationwide number is 988. You can call it any time to get the help you need. You can also go to VFW4646.com. My information's out there. It's on the web. You can always contact me, email me, and I can help you, try to get into some kind of program that will help you feel better about yourself. I mean, what would you say was the most beneficial treatment for you, James?
For me, it's probably the Shepherd Center, because I was fortunate enough to go to Georgia for 6 months, and I was so effed up by everything, just screwed up mentally that getting to get away for a little while from all the world's distraction and actually sit there and focus on yourself and not have to focus. I think a lot of us that are in this position, that we join the military, that we like to be bigger than ourselves. We like to take care of people. We like to do those things, but sometimes we'll use that as a distraction to actually not heal ourselves by focusing on other people. And that gave me an opportunity to basically remove myself for a period of time to just focus on me. I think that's key with anything. You'll get in there in those 7-day programs. You'll want more time, but you can kind of take that and make that the catalyst to just try to work on yourself, focus on yourself until you get good enough and healed enough to take care of the people around you.
Yeah. So, thinking on that note too, we both, been pretty much peer-to-peer support specialists. We've helped out, and, you and I have both talked about, as you're helping so many people and you're trying to show them the right path, it started hindering us, and I think too, there's a lot of people out there that are helping others, veterans that are helping other vets, and they do it so much that it starts playing a huge role in how their mental status is. And I know for me, and I'm pretty sure for you too, it got to the point, you go to enough funerals and you realize, what are you doing? And it starts making you, sad, depressed, like you didn't do enough, and I want to say to anybody out there who's a veteran or any person that's helping other people and you're doing it to the fact that, so much to where it starts putting you down, you've kind of got to learn when to quit for a little bit, or when to take breaks, or, find that outlet to, make things better. I mean, do you agree with that, James?
Yeah, 100%. That's for what we did for as long as we did, and dealing with the cases that we dealt with. You're dealing with also, every time you speak with these guys, you don't realize it you don't realize it at the time, but you're also triggering yourself, or you're bringing up your old memories, and when you fail, especially with people that you're not able to be there, or say the right words to them, or make them see things the way you want them to see them. It definitely takes a toll on your soul, and you have to take a break. If you don't take a break, you'll end up just destroying your life as well, because your family will suffer from your lack of mental care in dealing with these situations. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things you have to realize when you have to take a break, take a step back, and then re-engage after you're healed up and ready to go again.
Yeah, and I know you and I have both been through the gauntlet when it comes to stuff like that, and what really helped me was service dogs, or just dogs in general, other animals, having something that gets you out of your house, making you be somewhat responsible for something else, and so I know you had, at one point, I think you had 5 dogs.
Yeah. I had five dogs, and now I'm down to 2 dogs, but I've got 20 chickens and a cat. So yeah, so
best time to have eggs.
Having a routine of taking care of something more than yourself, other than children. I've got 2 kids too, but having that love, undivided love from the dogs and the cats. Well, cats not so much; they kind of love and hate you at their own accord. But yeah, definitely with dogs, they're always the lovers and always going to be there for you. But it's good to have that routine of care.
Yeah. So, we're going to be, this podcast is going to be going out to as many people as we can get it to get these resources out there. James, if there's anything that you could say to warfighters out there that maybe think they're too tough to ask for help, or, they're in that mentality of the suck it up mentality that, I'm here to tell you, over the last 10 years, our sergeant majors, our commanding colonels, our commanding generals, they're all start really, really realizing that the suck it up attitude needed to go, and they started changing to say it's okay to have some of these issues. James, what would you say? Like, if there's a warfighter out there that, was hard-headed like we were when we got out, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say to them that it's okay to be hard-headed. It's okay to be stubborn. It's okay to be all those things. But there has to be a time and place where you let yourself down, where you open up those doors. You are able to not tough it out for a period of time, release all the stuff you need to release, and then toughen up again, because that's how life is. Life comes at you in waves. But you have to be, if you're a rigid wall, you're going to get broken. But if you allow yourself to be flexible and open up and release those valves and talk about the things you need to talk about, but then rigid yourself back up and go back to the fight for the family and for everybody else, that's what you need to do. Just don't have that mentality that you have to have this rigid wall up all the time, and that you're not allowed to feel the things you want to feel. You're not allowed to express the things you want to express. Have that counselor, have that buddy, have that person where you can release those valves, get everything cleared out, and then go back to being rigid and taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, but allow yourself those times to break down, those times to cry, those times to make yourself feel and understand, what you did was significant and what your fellow brothers and sisters went through was significant, and that it needs to be remembered, hallowed, and honored. But remember that you have a duty to yourself and your family, and get yourself back together and become rigid again. Just don't sit there and think that you have to stay one way all the time.
What was that saying used to say? Fall down 7, get up 8?
Yeah, exactly. If you fall down 7 times, get up the 8th time. It's pretty simple. You're all going to fail. We're all going to fall. It's on you to stand back up. So fall many times, but just get up again. It's something that has to be said to everybody, and it's just what we have to do. It's how life is, that nothing's ever stagnant. It's always coming in waves and flowing. You just have to be there to be flexible enough to absorb it and move forward.
Well, I tell you what, James, our half hour is about up, and I'd love to have you back on in the future. And we can talk more as I start getting these resources out there. If you want to be a sponsor for Warfighters United, you can go to VFW4646.com. You can call up Q106, and, thank God for Q106 coming to the rescue here to get some of this information out for our vets to take advantage of. And if you're a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, and you have a veteran that's suffering with PTSD, TBI, or any kind of military injury, please reach out. If you're a veteran and you want to tell your story, you can email me at ericcalley@hotmail.com. I'll definitely get back to you. And, I want to make the most out of this opportunity that I've been given to help the most amount of veterans. There's VFWs, American Legions out there. There's so many places for support, but you've got to want it. And so I hope that, there's people out there that are having hard times that finally realize that it's time they're getting at bottom low and they need to do something about it. Well, you're not alone. There's thousands of us out there, that have been that way, have lifted ourselves up. We got back up. And so, James, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast, a true American hero, a true American warfighter, and I look forward to talking to you here in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Eric. Keep doing what you're doing. And like always, love your brother and, keep helping those around you.
Hoorah, kill.